This is the Sanji's Coolcast for the week of April 1st, 2019. I am your host, Sanji's Cool, and we have a pretty good show today. As you know, the month of March, Sanji's birth month, of course, is now past us, but the celebration, it never ends. Every month is a celebration of Sanji. And every year is the year of Sanji. But thank you for joining us. Yeah, we have a pretty good show, so why don't we get right into it? Let's start with the news. This is the news segment. A little bit light, but some big news. Van Presto's Grandista, the Grand Line Men Sanji figures, have now shipped from Crunchyroll's online store. If you pre-ordered one, like I did, with no haste, you would have probably received it over the weekend, like I did. So please stay tuned for my unboxing of the Grand Line Men Sanji figure that I'll be doing right now. The figure is in a box made of cardboard, most likely recyclable. 3 pieces of Scotch tape have the top sealed, but interesting to note when you open it up, there's some sculptor credits. I'm not going to read those, but they're great. Graphic design and photographers are also credited. That's really nice to see in toys. All these guys are unsung heroes. Unsung heroes that I don't have enough time to cover, unfortunately. But and it also says next 2019 3 Roanoa Zoro is next. So if you've been waiting for a Zoro figure, you're in luck, Zoro fans. All right, open it up, and as you know, it's a big box, but deep inside there's, as you can see, there's a like even smaller cardboard confinement for the figure, so it just makes the big box kind of unnecessary. But I do tend to keep all the boxes of figures I get. I don't necessarily know why. Maybe in fear that I'll move and I'll put them back in the boxes, which take up a lot of space. They just seem to take up a lot of space in my closet, but that's what I do. All right, so as you can see, the Grand Line Men Sanji figure is in a plastic bag separated in 3 sections. One for the base and the trademark cigarette of his in a separate plastic bag. Compartment for his head and neck, and a compartment for the rest of the body. I like to go in chronological order, so I'm going to start with the base, but not the cigarette. I'll save that for the end. As the base this time, it's just it's a rectangle with 1 footprint in it, so saving a lot of space on your display by only having a small little display stand for it. All right. Next up is the body that includes the feet, legs, crotch, torso, arms, hands, and tie. So what I'm gonna do, it's his left foot that goes into the base. There, it's simple as that. Make some room. Next is his head. And to get a nice look at the head sculpt, he looks very cool. He's got his it's time skip Sanji, so it's you see his left eye instead, with the reversed eyebrow. They also made sure to not forget his mustache and it's like goatee. It's a fairly accurate figure. Now I'm going to attach a neck there. Fairly simple. Just be really careful because it's a cool man's head. That sound there is the creaking of him on the base. He definitely leans. I don't want him to fall. He's too cool for that. There we go. Now next comes the cigarette. It's in a tiny little bag because it's a tiny little thing. You will lose these if you're not careful. I should especially be careful because I have carpet in here, and the tiny little cigarette will forever get lost in carpet. Now, the cigarette should go between the index finger and the middle finger, as you would if smoking a cigarette. I wouldn't know or smoked a cigarette. I pretended to, though, with Marvel candy sticks and assorted pens and Twizzlers. And yeah, here he is. Grandista, Grand Line Man, Sanji. As you can see, he's in his iconic Fishman Island arc outfit that he wore only once. But it's a iconic look for him. I'm going to place him right here. I'm going to move some things around on my desk. Yeah, he leans a little bit, but that's okay. He makes up for it for just being him. Definitely gonna take some time getting used to that. Yeah, he's quite the smooth criminal at the moment. But great. He's tall, and I will probably have to reassemble a bunch of displays to make sure he fits there with the rest of my Sanji figures. But overall, he's a great figure. I mean, it goes without saying. It looks like Sanji. He has significant little details here on his loafers. You don't see that too much in the One Piece manga and or anime. His hair, it's not like a bright CMYK yellow. It's a nice golden color. Gets a little darker at the ends. He's great. I'm so happy to have this figure in my collection. With that out of the way, highly recommend this figure, but it's time to get with the manga recap. So let's do it. This is the manga recap for chapter 938, A Woman's Secret. We start on page 6 at Ibisu Town. We hear a bunch of chattering, and someone says, "Stop it, you two. Arguing won't solve anything." And we get a intense close-up with a bang. Very Japanese sound in the Wano arc. It's Sanji, looking very different. He looks like a batch of grapes, bleeding a little bit. His lips are swollen, and bleeding from under the eye too. But he's saying, we shouldn't be casting doubt on each other. I didn't see anything either. And Nami, now fully clothed, yells, "You're the least trustworthy of all of us." And Frankie comments, "What does a human face get punched to make that shape?" Clearly, it was a fruit punch, as he looks like grapes. And Shinobu argues with the law that little bear, not the children's book character, but Beppo and his friends, Penguin and Shachi, must have spilled all the secrets to our operation. And Law argues Beppo and the others would die before they talk. Don't insult my crew. As he storms out of this secret location, he says, "We'll get to the bottom of this once we rescue and ask them." And Sanji, all grape-like, yells to Law. He says, "Stop! That's just what the enemy wants, Traffy." And that does it for the manga recap. Short chapter this week, but still pretty good. We got what we came for. It's we have a new look here with Grape Sanji. It's interesting. Not one of my personal favorites, but I'm open to new things, and I'll wait it out and see how it goes. But nonetheless, it was really cool to see Sanji again. Not his shining moment, but nonetheless, still looking really cool. So that does it for the manga recap. And let's take it to the Piece Together segment. This is the Piece Together segment, where I take your questions, comments, and theories about Sanji. And we got a few today. Our first one comes from Sweetkin Chef. And they ask, if you could have dinner with any three Sanjis, past or present, which Sanjis would they be? That's a tough question. Well, obviously, Mr. Prince would have to be one of them. He's very Prince-like. He has like the classic East Blue Sanji look with the blue pinstripe shirt, but he has those really cool yellow sunglasses that are really cool. And I think he would be a welcome addition to anyone's dinner plans. Maybe Whole Cake Island Sanji as well. He he's going through a lot of personal stuff. I think he would appreciate the company. Also, he would have hopefully a lot of nice things to say about the dinner, or maybe he would even cook. Haha. And he would stand out very well because he wears mostly white in that arc. So welcome addition to the party. And for my third Sanji, well, it's an easy choice. It would be movie 3 Sanji, Mr. Prince glasses, but purple shirt, button down to the chest, black pants, and blue shoes. Interesting. I don't think that's blue shoes. I might be mixing them up with the volume 11 Sanji, which is also a really cool Sanji. I wish I could include him on this, but you can only pick 3. It's like picking your favorite children, and all your children are Sanji. But movie 3 Sanji would be there. Might clash with Mr. Prince because they're both wearing the yellow sunglasses. But I think they would be able to bond over the fact that they're wearing those really cool yellow sunglasses. And Also, he's wearing a purple shirt, which you don't see Sanji wear too often. But I like it, so he's welcome to be there. Also, keep in mind that we would have Sanji's on staff, both cooking and being a stand-in waiter, like in Baratier. Baratier Sanji's really cool. I would want him to be there too. I'd want all Sanjis to be there. It's a tough question. All right, moving on. This one comes from Sanji Warrior Gene. He asks, what Pokemon would Sanji be? All right, that's a good question. I would say, if we're talking pre-time skip Sanji, Hitmonlee, because he likes to kick. But then Hitmontop does the little capoeira spin kicks, but also Hitmontop is a abomination, and I don't think he should be compared to Sanji. But once Sanji learns Diamble Jamba, I believe Blaziken would be a really great pick for Sanji. I think he fits the aesthetic very well. And our next question comes from Outsider 3000. They ask, what's cooler than being cool? The answer is being Sanji. Easy enough. Excuse me. And then our last question comes from Professor. No, I'm sorry. I can't read today. Professor Lawrence Clover of the University of Ohio writes, I think Sanji gets cooler every year. That is not a question. However, it is a profound statement that I can't help but agree with. So thank you to all those that wrote in today. And yeah, I guess that's means it's time to end the show. Thank you all for listening today. It's been another fun episode. Always is. It's always really cool. Appreciate your support. Now be sure to check us out on the internet. You can find us on LiveJournal and MyOtaku. And you can listen to us on Stitcher and 91.8 The Fan. And send in all your questions, comments, theories. Send them to sanjiscool@hotmail.com. Always appreciate hearing from you fellow Sanji fans. You're all cool. Not as cool Sanji. But the fact that you like someone that cool, that's pretty cool. Very cool. I've been your host, Sanji School. Au revoir. I think that's French or something. I don't know. I don't speak French or anything. But Sanji does. Because it's really cool. But until next time, bye. Oh, God. What am I doing?
This is the One Piece Podcast, episode 563 for the week of Sunday, March 31st, 2019. My name is Ed.
My name is Steve.
And my name is Alex.
I welcome everybody. This week on the show, we have our special guest, the Eisner Award nominated author of the upcoming Ghost Hog. It's Joey Weiser.
Hey everybody, happy to be on after a bit of a break.
Right on. And also our anime recap host and also the One Piece reviewer for AnimeNewsNetwork.com. That's Sam Leach.
Yo, how's it going, you guys?
All right. Yeah, we get a very tiny carrot in this week's chapter. I assumed you'd be excited.
That's why
Baby
it came
carrot.
Baby carrot. All right, that's a good one. So, as I said, this week we have a chapter 938 manga recap, anime recap of episode 878. We also have a special Romance Dawn interview with Henry Gilbert of Talking Simpsons podcast, and also What a Cartoon podcast. Alex, you did that with him last week. Any preview for the people?
Yeah, we talked a little bit about One Piece and a lot about manga and anime in general. Henry was a delight, a really great guest to have. I hope you guys enjoy it. Just be forewarned that Henry sounds great. I sound kind of bad because I accidentally recorded that segment with my my internal computer's mic as opposed to my good fancy mic, the one that I'm usually talking on. So apologies if I sound like crap, but Henry sounds great. So enjoy that.
All right, thanks, Alex. Let's see. We also have some pieced together this week, and unfortunately, the manga is off again next week. Let's see. Next chapter hits April 14th. They say at the end of the chapter, so that's a little disappointing. We don't have anything planned out just yet, but I think we'll have something special for the show next week. But does anyone have anything they want to add before we get into the next segment?
I'm
Let's
ready.
get into that next segment.
Hey everybody, it's Alex again for another Romance Dawn segment. Well, it's just me today, and today we will be talking with Henry Gilbert of Talking Simpsons and the What a Cartoon podcast, and many other things. Henry, how are you doing?
Hey, Alex, thanks for inviting me on. I'm doing great. This is a nice, fun, lazy Sunday of just editing one podcast.
Yeah, that's that's way more than what I'm doing today. Yeah, I actually just got back from a buddy's house, and we were playing Seiken Densetsu 3, which I'd never played before. And
Oh,
we
nice, yeah.
spent like 30 minutes trying to get out of tutorial mode or the opening bit, and it was really rough.
I've never played that one because I never went to look up like a fan sub or a fan translation for it. I was too lazy, so I just had to hear about how it's the greatest game ever. I would have figured by now they'd finally re-release it. I figured it was more likely it'd get an American release than Mother 3 at this point, but
Oh God, knock on
still
wood.
nothing.
Yeah, as a huge Mother fan, I well, not so much anymore, but I weeped openly every night for the first, I don't know, from 2005 to 2010.
Now, I feel like, nothing is never in selling video games, but I feel like the folks in Nintendo of America are just not into Mother. It's just not their thing, and they don't. I almost think now it's like they've dug in their heels to be like, we do not negotiate with terrorists, kind of thing with Mother 3.
No, that's the truth. So Henry, I would call you an anime fan, manga fan.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Yeah, you're in good company, obviously. But I'd like to hear about your weeb origins. When did little Henry Gilbert get into anime and manga, and how?
Well, I probably have a long story about this because I love to hear my own voice. But
Sure.
I was just thinking about what the first anime I ever saw was, and I didn't know it was anime. I didn't have the word for it, or even knew it was like from Japan. Was actually probably the early Nickelodeon series, their dub of Belle and Sebastian. If you've ever heard of that one, it is a like deep cut of not even that great. It's like basically a bunch of folks who worked on Dog of Flanders for World Masterpiece Theater then decided to make another big dog with a European boy story, and that was, I think, the first thing I saw. And there was just something about like just the aesthetic and the storytelling that just really grabbed me. And I would watch things like, Voltron or even Power Rangers or all these, Japanese produced things, Robotech too, but I didn't know they were from Japan. They were all heavily, they kept that information away, especially because in the 80s, it was just a big fear of the rising sun taking over American economy. But I believe it was mid 90s. I was just such a comic book geek for American comic books. And then it was all the American comic book things like, say, Wizard and a bunch of like early websites were talking about this crazy new thing called anime where like sailor witches fight Goku monkey people. And I thought, this sounds crazy. What is this? And so I guess the first time I really watched uncut Japanese animation was from the Japanimation section of my Blockbuster, and it was either Akira or Bubblegum Crisis was the first one I would have got of those. Either an Animego, both dub, either the Animego one or the streamlined dub of Akira. And about I'd peg it at 95 or 96.
Wow, yeah, that's similar to my experience. I think it's like very very similar experience going to the special interest section of Blockbuster, and God, calling it Japanimation for the longest time. I remember going into a Suncoast video asking where the Japanimation section was, and then the guy goes, "You mean Aname?" He did not pronounce it correctly. So then I started calling it Aname for like the longest time, and then my friend in school goes, "No, dude, it's anime."
I think I didn't learn that until Wizard magazine said like it's anime and it's pronounced manga like conga. That's how it always stuck with me since then. Of like it's manga like conga. That's how I always keep it straight.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, no, Suncoast was a big spot for me too once I really got into it. I mean, I have the privilege of growing up as kind of an upper middle class kid. Like I would get enough allowance to afford 1 or 2 VHSs a month of a series I really got into. And like that began with Ranma 1/2 and Maison Ikoku, a lot of Rumiko Takahashi stuff. And then around 98, I think I must have got my most serious when Evangelion really started hitting America. That's when I got truly bonkers for it. Comic-wise, manga, I wasn't reading as much. Like Dragon Ball Z started getting its manga published here as Dragon Ball Z and Dragon Ball concurrently. Basically, I don't know if you remember, Viz published like chapter 1 and then chapter like 200 around the same time and just went forward as if they were different comics.
Yeah, the single issues.
Yeah. So that's what I was really getting into then. But on the anime side of thing, I mean, it was Evangelion and then also whatever like OVAs. I didn't commit to as many series though, because like OVAs, you got more bang for your buck,
Oh yeah, for sure. For the longest time, it was either OAV or OVA. It was, I guess, interchangeable, and I still get corrected to this day if I say OVA.
I forget. I think I say OVA. I believe OVA was the one done by Animego, which was the most snobbish of sub ones, which is what I loved about it. Like They were like, that's, I interviewed Robert Woodhead once for our podcast, and I told him what a little snob I was for all the Animego stuff, which I mean they really took pride in their work. You could tell, like like the liner notes you get in Urusei Yatsura VHS they give you so much context that if you weren't living in Japan in 1980, you wouldn't have. Like they made the jokes. I consider like my beloved Simpsons. I don't know how somebody who didn't live in America at the time those episodes were coming out can really understand the comedy in it if without like proper guidelines or liner notes.
Oh no, I completely agree. I think that's such a cool thing to include on a VHS back in the day too, because this was before the times of special features existing on home media. Occasionally a VHS would have a little featurette at the beginning or the end, but that's really cool. I've never actually watched Urusei Yatsura or read it for that matter.
Oh, it's a ton of fun. I mean, look, is it dated because it stars a main character who's lecherous and molests women? Yes. But Rumiko, I stand by that. Rumiko Takahashi, she would always have Ataru or any other molester get beaten senseless as punishment for it, but she kind of had her cake and ate it too with like I'm sure her editors were breathing down her neck to be like, we need fan service, and she'd have to punish the creators of fan service within the world as a compromise, I suppose.
No, I know what you mean. I was a big Ranma nut back in the 90s. Yeah, I was a huge fan. Back when I was way more of an anime watcher than a manga reader back then. A buddy of mine had some Fushigi Yugi volumes and some Ranma, so I would go over there and read occasionally. But Dragon Ball was my first, my forever girl, as I call it.
Yeah. I didn't. I was reading so many American comics. I didn't make as much time for manga either until. Really the collections, the tankobons, whatever you call them, until those started really coming out as the way to sell manga, I wasn't reading them much. And I usually, the idea of like, well, I spend the time to read 800 chapters of a manga, or will I watch a TV show, which is like in color and moving? I'm going to go with that. Though now as I've grown up, I've come to like a lot more of the manga, and the original artist vision and the comic page storytelling, more than the anime adaptations in a lot of cases. Like I just did a complete reread of Dragon Ball, like from volume 1 to volume 32? Was that where it ended, or 39?
Something like that. I just know that the whole series is 42. Like that's
okay, to 42. Yeah, I read the whole original Dragon Ball run, and it just was amazing to me because I was like, oh, this flows so much better without all the DBZ padding, or even the original Dragon Ball padding, and two, there's just so many moments of just like pure fun and being silly that Toriyama just indulged in. And I think it's something too, I just laugh at my 90s childhood self who was so obsessed with like power levels and trying to think of how, who's the strongest of these characters. When you read the original, you're like, this is a joke comic about goofy named characters, and it's all silly. Like, you shouldn't get this serious about it.
Yeah, no, for sure. That was the thing I really enjoyed about Dragon Ball, is that like most people in the US, I didn't get into Dragon Ball until after Dragon Ball Z kind of hooked me. Mm-hmm. So it sort of slows down, and it's a lot more fun in that regard. So did you happen to well, I guess we can move right on to One Piece, because One Piece has Dragon Ball roots big time. Mm-hmm. In terms of like its overall feel, I think. When did you first hear about One Piece? Because it wasn't super well known, even like when it started around American Shonen Jump either.
Yeah, no. Well, so my connection to One Piece is a little embarrassing, I'd say, or I don't know, that like my disengagement with it until very recently. And I think it was a mix of things. So, when it started in 99 or 98, I wasn't hearing about it. Like, it was not in my forums. I wasn't hearing about how cool it was or any positive things about it. And then by about 02, 03, that is kind of when I started falling a little bit out of anime, just from like being busy, but also feeling like it felt like everything was a harem show. Like, this was the Love Hina years of at least of what was coming to America, which, hey, if you like Love Hina, fine. That's whatever. I'm not judging you, but
the early 2000s, that was, for me, that was sort of a time where I was starting to fall out myself. I was getting back to my own comic book roots. With Bone and Spider-Man. I'm like you. I'm a huge Spider-Man nut. Like,
oh, that's great. Yeah.
So I can completely relate to your love of comics.
Yeah. And it's always been that kind of connection to me. I like American and Japanese comics about the same. But yeah, with One Piece, as it was ramping up its popularity and becoming the new thing, it wasn't really becoming the new thing here. And when it would like premiered on 4Kids, I was like, this 4Kids bullshit. This obviously sucks if it's on 4Kids. The only thing on 4Kids I gave a chance was Ultimate Muscle by being a wrestling thing, and even that I didn't get super into. But and so then by about 07 or 08 is when I got into the video games press, which I did from as my full-time job from 2008 to 2017. And so I would definitely hear about One Piece as the new big thing when it would get a bunch of games here, and it was being sold by the same publisher in most cases as that sold Naruto and Dragon Ball. And I think also another reason I didn't give One Piece a chance was because I gave Naruto a chance, and I enjoyed it for like 5 volumes and then just kind of fell off. And so that's why I was like, maybe I'm just not into shonen series anymore. Maybe that's just it. And I think when it really hit me how big One Piece was the first time I ever went to Japan. I visited that for a press trip, 2011, and it was just everywhere. It was at every hobby shop I went to was something from One Piece, and it was all just like now that I know a bit more about One Piece from reading it some in the last year. I know these characters, but when I first saw it, I was like, these are some of the weirdest looking things I've ever seen. I couldn't, like, aesthetically, it interested me just from a uniqueness standpoint, because I felt like, okay, I know why Dragon Ball is popular, or why the strong guys in it look cool, or I know why like the Naruto characters look cool, but these are just so weird looking. I don't understand how it's as big as those, or bigger even.
Yeah, one of the main criticisms I heard like early on about One Piece was that it doesn't look like anime, which I mean it doesn't. It's really like it's really rubbery. It's very like I would say European. Which is kind of crazy, because the first time I ever saw One Piece was the anime. It was in Greece. My family is Greek, so I would go there occasionally, for a couple summers, and I was super into Dragon Ball, and I would watch the Greek dub of Dragon Ball, and after that, my cousins would watch this fucking weird show, this rubbery dude and this guy with 3 swords, and I was like, what is this show? Like, is this some sort of Greek show? And then I looked it up online later, and I went back home. I bought the bootleg Hong Kong sub DVDs, because that's the only way you could get at that point, and I was like super addicted to it.
I totally get I totally understand the draw of it now, but it also, I then also get kind of overwhelmed. So when in my teens, it was attractive to me to hear that there were like 800 chapters of a comic I'd never read before, because it was like, all right, time to learn all about it. Or like when I got into Gundam, I was really excited of like, there's so much Gundam I can watch. Yeah. But by the time I got into the chance for me to get into One Piece, my mind had changed on that stuff, because I was like an adult paying rent and having a job. And I was like, oh, that's so much. I'm so far behind. I'll never catch up. And so it's also why I didn't really give it a chance. Until then a couple years later, when I went back, every time I went back to Japan, I also appreciated One Piece's like resiliency as the most popular thing, because when I first went there in 2011, it was like One Piece and Yokai Watch stuff everywhere. Then 2 years later, like no Yokai Watch anywhere. Like that fad had burned away, but One Piece stuff was still everywhere. Like that's just how big it still was. Like its consistent quality and able to keep up its fan base was really impressive to me.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy how that works. One Piece over here in the U.S. it was such like a cult thing. Like as you say, Naruto even was way more popular, and I think it's because it had that combat aspect to it. Mm-hmm. One Piece is more of that, like, you know, it's got combat, but it's more of an adventure and character building type thing. Mm-hmm. You mentioned earlier that you've played some of the video games, and I'm assuming this was for review purposes.
Yeah, usually for review purposes. Even if you don't read One Piece, if you're this is some insight into the games press, folks. If you are an anime person to an editor and they can count on you to review stuff, they will throw any anime game at you no matter how up to date you are with it. And so I had several thrown at me because unlike a lot of my other coworkers who would often go like, anime, that's dumb. Or like, isn't that full of preteen girls in no clothes? And I'm like, okay, yes, sometimes, but not always. But yeah, so then you get thrown the anime games. So I would play several of them, which gave me, an overarching idea of the story. Though a lot of the several I played, I forget the name of the game, but the one that was on the 3DS that was more of an RPG, that felt so much more natural than the ones that try to put One Piece into a, open area fighting game of the type that Namco Bandai really likes to publish. I just, that type of, 3D fighting that they make, like, say, Jump Force as. I just don't like how that plays. That's just not for me.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. That 3DS game was Romance Dawn.
Yes.
Yeah, pretty fun game. I'm a fan of it as far as the One Piece games go. My personal favorite series was a title called Grand Battle. They brought one to the U.S. with like the 4Kids voices and stuff like that, but the Japanese ones are really great. Starting with like the third one, they became like Power Stone clones, which I was all over because
I love Power Stone. Yeah.
So I was kind of hoping they'd eventually kind of make a jump back to that, but now I don't know. I think the latest game is an open world thing, which, I mean, I don't know. That's got middling reviews, so I'm probably going to stick to Breath of the Wild.
Well, and the last one I reviewed was that Burning Blood game from a few years ago.
Yeah.
Which I believe the main bit of the game, they pick a good. It basically is just the God, I don't know the names of the arcs. I'm not, and I haven't gotten to yet in the manga, but it's the one where his brother is held captive and they're fighting Marine. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, so it's that entire thing, and giant stuff happens, and it also. Which I think was to their benefit. It gave no care if you knew anything about. It assumed you knew everything about One Piece if you brought this game. That Romance Dawn 3DS game I also really liked because it was made by the same people who made Dragon Ball Origins for the DS, which was just a simple Dragon Ball RPG that retells the story, and it's a more fun. It's about the stories, not just combat, even in Dragon Ball. And that's what I prefer to experience in those cases.
Have you seen the commercials, the old commercials for the Dragon Ball Origins games?
Oh, no.
Oh, my God, they're delightful. You got to look them up on YouTube after this. They like warm your heart. It's like a like a salaryman who comes into his kid's recital. Like he's a little late, but they're all singing Makafushigi Adventure or Romantic Geryo. It's quite nice.
That's sweet.
Yeah. Very worth looking up.
Oh yeah, and the last thing I wanted to say about Romance Dawn, that 3DS game, was that I first saw it as a preview from this is again on one of my TGS trips. So I was in Tokyo at the Bandai Namco headquarters getting a demo of this game, and it was this kind of embarrassing moment of they're previewing the game for us, and then one of the developers stops showing off the game. He's like, "Hey, how popular is One Piece in America? I'd like to know." I was like, "Oh, geez, am I your market researcher now?" And I told him well, I think people know it a little in America, but it's not as big as Naruto and Dragon Ball. And he thanked me for that insight, and I get it. When you're just if you're operating out of a development studio in Tokyo and everyone loves One Piece, it's hard to understand how it feels or how it's viewed by another culture.
Yeah, no, that's 100% true. I would always gauge One Piece's popularity based on how many cosplayers I saw at anime conventions. There was a time in my life where I was going to Otakon every year. I live in like closer to Baltimore, so that was a much easier trek for me. And every year you'd always see like the one big series that people are cosplaying. Like one year it was just nothing but Naruto. One year nothing but Bleach. One year nothing but like there's always Fashion Stampede cosplayers, of course, but Kingdom Hearts was always like a big one. Never saw a whole lot of One Piece cosplayers. Further on.
Yeah, I don't remember seeing too many of them but though I've never gone to dedicated anime, too many dedicated anime cons. It was more often just the general comic cons.
Yeah, no, I mean that's probably a better move, honestly. Anime cons are really great if you have friends who you don't see too often.
No, that's nice.
Which is nice. Yeah, that's like the only time I ever see Steve is when MagFest rolls around. Which, by the way, definitely go to MagFest at some point. It's super up your alley, I think.
No, I bet I would love it. My co-host and partner in business and all this stuff, Bob Mackey, he just went to, I think, his first one this year, and he had nothing but nice things to say about it. And so many of the like East Coast podcasters and nerd folks I enjoy, they usually go to MagFest and do cool stuff. And so it would be nice to meet them in person for sure. The only thing that's prevented me from going to MagFest so far, I guess, is the flight. It's just so long. Like I used to visit my family in Florida once a year. Now it's been a few years, but just the flight from San Francisco to the East Coast just takes so long. It makes it less. I'm more likely to go to other West Coast things than East Coast these days. But I really would like to at least do one big East Coast thing a year, at least for like our pod. I mean, me and Bob have talked about like we should get on. See if we can get a panel at one of these things. Like, see if we could do it. We should give it a shot.
Yeah, why not? So now that you're reading One Piece, what's grabbing you so far? Because you told me that you're about 5 volumes in.
Yeah, I'm now in volume 6. One thing that's grabbing me is the same thing I had when in my recent experience with reading Dragon Ball from the beginning again, because I didn't read OG Dragon Ball, the pre-DBZ stuff, all that closely. So when I finally got to like the first appearance of, say Purin or Yajirobe, I'm like, oh, this is where this character first appeared. This is, wow, man, they go from this to the Yajirobe I know. And so now that I'm in volume 6 and it's the first appearance of Sanji, I'm like, oh, this is the guy everybody talks about, huh? Or at least I think our mutual friend Maddie does. Yeah. But I mean, lots of other people do. So it's fun to, see the things I know about in their first appearance kind of way. I always enjoyed that, even with like American comics too. When I was a kid, finally going back and reading when I first got into Spider-Man, then I was like, well, I have to see the first appearance of Venom, or I have to see the first time he fought Doc Ock. And so it's fun in that way. But what is really grabbing me, and why I think I'll stick with it and not do it via the anime, is just, I mean, Oda's draftsmanship is just like amazing. Like, he's, even in the earliest chapters, he's just such a great like action adventure storyteller, and just also his character designs are incredible. They're just so weird. Like, I feel I'm going by too much what I read in Bakuman, which is another series I finished last year and just love. But that one's all about working at Shonen Jump, and all of these artists are like, how do I design a character? I want to design a character that everyone likes, or that will be the hated villain, or all these things. And then when you see just the weirdos that he constantly trots out, I just like, this just feels like a cool character he wanted to design that had like no plans for marketability or merchandising, that uniqueness to it really draws me in. That just every time I see one of his new weirdos, like in the this is all ancient history to your listeners, but like when I got to the first appearance of the long-nosed guy,
Usopp.
Yeah, Usopp. In his first appearance, when you get to the end of that, and you meet these 2 cat men who are fighting Zolo, I was just like, what the fuck is this? Like he drew one of the cats to have a literal arrow as his nose. Like it's just so silly and ridiculous that it feels like an extreme gag manga, but then there's blood everywhere, or like silly crazy shit happens all the time in it, but also like the drama of life and death is still there. That balance is amazing to me.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy how well it does that. I often compare it to Bone because of that. Like it has this very cartoony style.
Yeah,
and yet the themes can be so serious. And you're just getting right into it too. You think his draftsmanship is good now? Like just wait. Like,
oh no, that's what impresses me too, of knowing what it like. This is, he was so young, and I also really appreciate his skill and his productivity. It's not fair, like with today's artist, it's not fair, like saying, okay, in the American comic market, it's not fair to compare today's artist to Jack Kirby, because Jack Kirby was like an impossible artist machine who was born to make deadlines and work himself to an early death. Like that's just how he operated. And it's not fair to, like, there's so many amazing artists now, but they can't put out 12 issues in a year. Like it's an unfair expectation to put on them. And I feel the same for so many of the poor mangaka who work so hard on, hitting all their deadlines, and then Oda just makes it look like nothing, with just insane amounts of like skill and density to each like panel and action. It's so impressive.
Yeah, it's kind of funny you brought up the the basically the destiny of most mangaka, because that's, I think, what killed Tezuka, is just his just love for the craft. And Oda is, I mean, knock on wood, I hope he hope he manages to finish One Piece, because he gets like 3 hours of sleep at night. Like they released, I think, his schedule once a few years ago, and the internet was abuzz of like, oh my god, he hardly ever sleeps, and he doesn't get to do this and that, and still manages to carve out time for his family too, which is absolutely insane.
Well, that is unbelievable to me. I mean, it's well, like other guys from his generation like burned out, and I don't blame them. Like if you're Toriyama or the creator of Naruto as well, like they deserve their time off, and they can be as creative. Also, like they created such a giant thing that you can just in America, it's an obvious pathway of like you created this comic, and then you start getting meetings for like movies and animated series and all this stuff, like say what Robert Kirkman is doing. But there still seems to be this like belief that you have to, like, well, you never stop being the manga creator. Like you have to do this forever. Like you can't stop doing it. I think, for Boruto, the creator of Naruto is finally able to just hand it to his assistant and be like, just do this. I can't, I'll tell you what to draw. I need my life back.
Yeah. And
I feel for them, but I don't know. I mean, yeah, Oda seems to still be handling those insane deadlines and making it tough on everybody else, I suppose. But I do appreciate that as from a skill level of like, you're this productive with such amazing work and also pacing. And I mean, I've heard people say that like there's never, like One Piece doesn't have what feels like filler arcs, or like, oh, I got to what the obvious end would be, I better restart something. Like that's what happened to so many series, like DBZ. Dragon Ball hit an end multiple times, and he just had to reshuffle the deck in front of you. Or like same with Yu Yu Hakusho. Like I prefer, it made me sad when I'm like, no, you've reached your end, and why can't you just end it? And the answer is their editor won't let them in a lot of cases. But yeah, meanwhile with Oda, it feels like he doesn't lose the plot or come to some like cul-de-sac of storytelling.
I'm really interested to see what your take is going to be on the series once you continue to read it, because oh my god, it just keeps getting better. Like it's funny you mention the pacing thing too, because filler arcs don't really exist in the manga, but when there is something that kind of seems like it could be a filler arc, it's just still fun because at the end of the day, it's a pirate adventure, so you don't mind.
Yeah, I no it's fun to get into a shonen thing again too, and I mean another thing that's really helped me start getting into it is don't want to just sound like I'm advertising the Shonen Jump app, but it is really good.
No, we swear by it now. Like, it is amazing. I haven't had time to get into most series, and now I can finally read One Punch Man, which I even haven't seen the anime. And everybody, even my friends who don't necessarily watch anime, they're like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah, I'm kind of shocked. It feels perfect for you. No, I mean, obviously you could say that like I wish more things were on there on the Shonen Jump app. Like I wish JoJo was on there. I wish Hunter x Hunter was, and Yu Yu Hakusho as part of the vault. I mean, for the $1.99. I mean, they're on there, but you pay extra for them.
Yeah, at some point,
which
probably will happen.
Yeah. I would think I would bet their mangaka are not into playing ball on that, though. Then again, in the case of both JoJo and Yu Yu Hakusho and Hunter x Hunter, I feel like we're at least lucky that the creators agree to anything digital at all, because I know for many like Naoki Urasawa, one of my all-time favorite manga of all time, none of his shit's available digital, and it feels like just a resistance to it for whatever reason, which I get it. Like, digital comics are stealing from them, and if they hear digital, maybe that's all they think of, just like, oh, you mean thieves?
Yeah.
But it's just, that's the way the future is going. It feels the same with like Akira. Like, I love Akira. I love my gigantic like 40-50 pound box set of the full series. But when I pull out the books, I'm like, this is so fucking unwieldy. I wish I could just look at this page on a screen. And maybe that, me from 10 years ago would think I'm a charlatan for saying that. But I've eased up on how I feel about reading digital manga. And yeah, Shonen Jump, the app has really opened me up, not just to reading One Piece just so quickly. It's just so easy to binge read and be like, well, the next chapter just starts now. All right, read. And I've been doing the same with like Promised Neverland, which I've been meaning to read for so long. I've now started picking that up. I intend to do the same with Food Wars. I was doing it with Dr. Stone, but I do have to say Dr. Stone is ridiculous. And I liked it at first, but I'm like, this is too ridiculous. I can't. When you find out that the guy was so smart that he has memorized literally all scientific knowledge by the age of 18, by the age of 16, and kept count for thousands of years in his brain, like that's that's ridiculous. I just can't. I guess
it depends on the context of the series.
Yeah.
The world that is already built. It's sort of how I feel about Batman, the third Nolan movie.
The Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah, like I think my biggest problem with that movie is the bat UFO thing that he has. I'm like, come on, we're living in a super grounded world where you turn the Batmobile into like this tumbler thing, and now he's got like a giant drone that wouldn't scientifically exist in real life. Come on. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, no, that is. I think you're right. That's the same frustration that I get sometimes reading Dr. Stone. That I'm like, well, okay, look, I bought in that they have to rebuild society from the beginning, and like they have to rediscover fire. They have to redo all this stuff. Like that is a very gritty kind of idea. But then they're like, well, this super scientist. Then also they meet the high schooler who is like the greatest fighter of all time, who can easily catch an arrow out of the air. It's just like, well, okay, I guess things aren't as real. And maybe I'm being silly to get mad, to draw a line on that in this shonen anime that's about, a post-apocalyptic story. But it's just, it gets too silly. It gets way too silly.
I can understand. Yeah. The case of digital manga versus, real life paper that you can touch and smell. I'm with you. Even 5 years ago, I couldn't, I was just constantly buying trades. Saga, I've completely switched to digital. And I'm reading 20th Century Boys for the first time. I'm doing the perfect volumes. So I got some time to wait now because the third volume just arrived on my doorstep the other day, and none of it's digital, so I've got to wait.
Yeah, I think it's interesting you mentioned 20th Century Boys because I think that was a turning point for me on physical. Well, the big turning point for me on physical was moving and packing my boxes full of my physical books. Yep. When I moved in 2016, or 2017. But before that, I super got into 20th Century Boys. Like I had read one thing online that said, "Oh, 20th Century Boys rules. You should check it out." I give it a shot. And I am just devouring the Viz manga collections, and I get up to volume 12, and I'm like, all right, when does 13 come out? And I see it's 3 months away, and that 14 is months after that. And then I say to myself, I'll buy these when these come out, but I'm going to read them now, and I let Google do the rest for me. And I'm not proud of that. I don't want to, but I felt like I paid my penance by going to Naoki Urasawa's like museum thing that they did a few months ago, and I spent like $80 on a friend towel. So,
well, that's about right, I'd say.
It's fair. It's like, but yeah, that's what happened to, I had a friend too who I got them into my 20th century. I lent them my copies of it. And when they hit the physical border, they're like, look, here's a Scanlation site. Just read it here. I can't stop. And I also, I think didn't want to, I'm not putting the blame on this friend, but I also didn't want him to get ahead of me. So we couldn't talk about it. So and then also with Urasawa, like, going to that museum thing made me realize how many of his works here aren't being published. And I feel like he's just holding them back for some reason. And I don't understand why. Like even physical, they just like, you can't get Billy Bat here, which sounds like the exact comic I want to read. I don't know if you know that one.
Yeah, I'm aware of Billy Bat, but yeah, never read it.
Yeah, it's about it takes place in the like 30s American comics market. Like in this a Japanese creator who lives in America creates a character called Billy Bat. And so it's like a comic about making comics that also turns into like a murder mystery, as so many do for Osawa. He just loves his murder mysteries. But
oh man.
And we just don't have it.
Yeah, I had the same feeling when I went to the Tezuka Museum in Japan, and there's so much of his stuff that has gone unpublished over here.
Yeah.
So much of the stuff. Rainbow Parakeet is the one that I want to read.
No, especially with Tezuka, he just was so prolific. I don't blame people for not publishing it here. Also, I would bet that like even his most popular stuff like Astro Boy doesn't sell that well in America. Like I think it's such a niche market of like, because they're not hip and cool, they're more historical artifacts, and so you just have to be like an extra big nerd to want to read his stuff that isn't Astro Boy, to even go deeper than that into his works. And he just the one I really got into is his Buddha book, just also because it's so like just cruel, just a harsh book, and very very interesting, his take on the life of Buddha.
Oh, fabulous! Yeah, Buddha's such a great series, or I guess mini. You call it.
Mini.
Of
sure.
Comics. So Henry, thank you so much for sitting and chatting. I honestly think we could talk for hours about manga.
Oh yeah.
But until next time, because we'd love to have you on again, of course.
Sure.
Once you get more One Piece.
Let me read some more One Piece first.
Yeah.
Yes.
But until then, where can everybody find you?
Oh my goodness. You can find me on Twitter at HENEREYG. And that's where I'm usually publicizing me and Bob Mackey's dual podcasts. We do 2 a week. One, Talking Simpsons, where we go through the entire Simpsons series in chronological order. We're deep into season 9 now. We've had tons of great guests on. Tons more to come, and including friend of the show, Maddie Kopp, and also What a Cartoon. If you like all this anime talk, we go through a different animated series each week in a specific episode of it. Often we've done We have done a number of anime series, and as a premium thing on our Patreon, we do What a Cartoon Movie, where we do a different film each month for our $10 and up patrons. We've done Kiki's Delivery Service and Akira, and also Goofy Movie, and I think we go so deep into them, and I think we learn a whole lot in those. So yeah, check all of that out at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons or Talking Simpsons and What a Cartoon in wherever you listen to podcasts.
Oh, thank you so much, Henry.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming by, and we'll go right into the next segment.
This is the manga recap for chapter 938, A Woman's Secret. And on the cover this week, we have Oda not really doing an April Fool's gag on the cover of of the manga this week, like Horikoshi did for My Hero Academia. Did everyone see that?
No.
He drew Deku as Mothra.
Yeah, pretty great. And it's
pretty-
kind of a takeoff of one of the old Mothra posters with Deku's cocoon up on the Tokyo Tower or whatever that is.
Yep, and so instead Oda has done a traditional request, birds sandbathing in crocodiles' sand by Purple Panda. So yeah, it looks like some sparrows of some kind, probably, or something. But
Yeah,
yeah,
cute.
yeah, some birds do clean themselves this way by bathing in sand. So
That is armpit sand.
it's belly button sand.
Hey, some people are into both of those things.
It's so hard to get out the belly button sand.
So Purple Panda, that's a team from Legends of the Hidden Temple, right? Purple Pandas.
The silver snakes.
I like this one because there is something that's been kind of bugging me about the requests lately is that they've been super specific. Like it's almost like the requester is like guiding Oda like in exactly how to draw it and what the gag would be and everything. And this one, and it's just been sort of something that's been stuck in my craw. But this one's is a little bit more open, and I like that about it.
Mm-hmm. All right. Anyone else have comments on the cover page?
No.
Okay.
It's a fine cover page, but
There's that one bird directly on Crocodile's crotch.
Tis a fine cover page, but sure tis no barn.
Yeah, I think it's funny that this is like one of the only times we've seen Crocodile like a clear picture of him post time skip, right?
He's lounging. He's relaxed.
well, the anime showed him recently, but I think it was a little implied filler, and he just looked like Impel Down Crocodile. So I was like, tisk tisk.
Mm-hmm.
It
But,
doesn't seem to have changed so much.
But I don't think he is going to change much. Probably just clothes. But this cover page, yeah, tis a fine bird bath, but there's no pool English.
Done with. Yeah. Okay. So we start right back where we left off last week, and the Scythe Man, whose name escapes me.
Scythe Man.
Yeah. He's not a gifter.
I forget what his name is already.
I'm gonna have a hard time.
Kamarazu? No. Kamazo.
Kamazo. Okay.
Yeah.
And
I think right now Zach is having an out-of-body experience thinking of trivia questions.
God, if he ever tries to do Wano trivia, that's gonna be the end of us.
He has done that, I think, before.
Yeah. It was pretty early on, I think.
Yeah.
Anyway, so this is the aftermath of Zoro's attack, and Kamazo is all tore up. His blood splattered everywhere. Toko is shocked. Komurasaki is shocked. Oh, the bridge troll is shocked too. What's his name?
I don't remember. I think they
Maru or whatever.
Yukimaru, yeah.
Yukimaru. That's right. They say it later in the chapter. We get this beautiful sort of samurai movie image at the bottom
overhead
of the page.
shot.
Yeah, bottom of the page of the battle is over and the one man falls, the other man lives. So
God, I love that.
it's cinematic. I know. I saw a couple people posted that on Twitter. But, Komurasaki, she's impressed. Even as Zoro, he's breathing hard a little bit, and he sort of scoffs. And
I think you're making some presumptions about who this woman is, Ed.
I thought we all came to that consensus last week. I don't know. don't know what you're talking about.
It's obviously time traveling Robin.
Huge if true.
I must warn my future self not to cut her bangs. Oh, I'm too late. I'm sorry. I don't know why I made her sound like the Doctor from Lost in Space.
So Zoro turns around. I guess he's anticipating that Yukimaru will attack him again. And he just sort of laughs and scurries off over the bridge as Zoro sort of passes out. And you can... It's an interesting shot from like behind his eyelid as his eyes close behind him. And he wakes up to the sound of someone saying, "Sir Samurai, Sir Samurai." Next page.
Yeah, that whole bit is like very cinematic, very cool.
Sam?
Oh, I'm sorry. And we turn the page and we see the map, Kinemon and Mink Musketeers hanging out in the abandoned village in Kuri. And somebody is shouting, Dogstorm, where have you been? I think it's Kinemon. What's the matter, Kinemon? It's an emergency. And Dogstorm is hearing the news. You mean the enemy has learned about the symbolic flyer and the mark of the moon? And Carrot, she's just a tiny little Carrot down there in the corner. She's holding her head. She's distressed. Yeah, and it's turning into a whole ordeal. What should we do, my lord? Kinemon is saying, I had thought we were careful with our distribution, but there's no telling where or how the word leaked out. We chose this coded symbol on the off chance that it fell into the unintended hands. I don't know why that's hard for me to say. But now they've learned the meaning of the ankle symbol and this coded message. Based on the reports, it would seem that our cohorts in the capital are being apprehended by Kaido and Orochi's forces. And then we see establishing shot of Flower Capital. You're under arrest, seize him. And some cohort of Kinemon's is being arrested. Found one. He's got the mark of the moon in the puzzle image. And then some cop, I guess, is shouting, anyone with the marks on their ankles are traitors. If you see something, inform us at once.
It was Stephen posted on Twitter about this particular guy. He's like, if thou seest something, thou must say it something. And I just also want to point out that there's a dog mink in the bottom right there who looks like one of the Cerberus heads or one of the dogs from Enies Lobby.
Yeah, he's pretty gnarly. I like that warthog one too.
Well, of course you would.
Yeah.
Well, you're right.
And then our final panel is with Hawkins and Drake. Hawkins is saying, word travels fast. The entire capital has heard by now. There's no time for us to leisurely tour the city's bathhouses. Good for you, And Drake's like, I don't know what you're talking about. You're just as culpable as I am for letting them get away.
This is a Game of Thrones scene. This is a Game of Thrones scene. It feels, I mean, also I've watched like the first two seasons of Game of Thrones since like last week's episode, so I've been thinking about that a lot. But it sounds like, and also Hawkins with his British accent.
Yeah, I was gonna say we're establishing Drake as the Yamcha of One Piece.
Yeah, the early Dragon Ball Yamcha.
Mm-hmm.
Is that his pirate wish? Is he just wants a girlfriend?
All right, next page, Steve.
Next page, that is I. And at the Pleasure Hall in the Flower Capital, we have... I'm sorry, I was about to read this dialogue like it was still exposition. And someone says, Komonosaki's wake is canceled, boss. Entire building full of people losing their wits like this, something bad would happen. Maybe the same guy. Or maybe it's this dude again. The crowds and the chaos at her funeral tomorrow should be even worse, as we see a bunch of people who are probably gathered outside the pleasure hall holding up their Komonosaki 316 signs, crying and Komu Mania is running wild.
Jag thinned.
What was that?
Jag thinned. Never mind.
And anyway, this guy says, more than a few folks will hate you for it, Boss Kiyoshiro. Please be careful. And Kiyoshiro says, like, that was mumbling, I'm sorry. He says, wish they'd mind their own business. There was no other way, and I'm the one suffering the most damages here. How come no one thinks about the man, huh? No one ever thinks about the killer. just the killed. And this guy says, "Oh yeah, sure." This apparently this very Sylvester Stallone looking guy is like, "Oh yeah, indeed."
Old Scarface.
And I'm sure that, yeah, and this is Kyoshiro, I assume, still saying, Shogun Orochi's in a bad mood. This is probably the cause of all of it. And we see the symbol with the cranes, right? The same symbol they were talking about on the last page. And then we go over to Ebisu Town, and someone's yelling, "Stop it, you two! Arguing won't solve anything." And then we get a closer look. It's actually our Lumpy Space Prince here.
Fruit of the loom,
Like, oh my
Sanji.
God.
He's the fruit of the loom grape.
We shouldn't be casting any doubt on each other. I didn't see anything either. And Nami, who's fully dressed, says, "You're the least trustworthy of all of us." And Frankie says, "How does someone's face get punched into that kind of shape?"
It's almost a little too fourth wall-y for me.
I think now, like, I like how there's like a limit now. Maybe Usopp just came in and it's like, "Well, funny you should mention that. Back in the drum mark."
Yeah.
Like, "Oh my
That's
God,
true.
no one cares, you nerd." Like Usopp is all of a sudden the One Piece nerd. Like he should be. Usopp would do a One Piece podcast if he could.
We
Bartolomeo.
would have like we would have one of those refresher panels that we got in the Reverie. So it was like, oh, drum mark refresher. Usopp got punched like this in this arc by Vivi.
So anyway, Shinobu is arguing with the law. It's like that little bear and not the beloved children's cartoon book character. That little bear and his friends must have spilled all the secrets to our operation. And Law says, "Beppo and the others would die before they talk. Don't you talk about them that way. How dare you?" He's not that dramatic, but he says, "We'll get to the bottom of this once we rescue and ask them." And he starts to storm out. And Sanji says, "Stop. That's just what the anime wants, Trappy."
Oh my glob.
My glob.
Why are we doing that voice?
Lumpy Space Princess.
Oh, okay.
An Adventure Time.
Who also kind of looks like a big thing of grapes.
Yeah.
True. Okay. Having never seen Adventure Time, I would not know.
Well, if we made this reference like 10 years ago, people would love us.
Yeah.
Was that 10 years ago?
Yes.
Yeah.
Jesus.
I suppose these days a Mineta reference is probably more apt.
Get him out of here.
I don't even want to talk about
Not
that guy.
too dissimilar than Sanji at times.
You don't talk about Sanji that way.
I mean, he's got a big grape head right now.
Don't you even dare.
So,
I will have none of this.
Steve storms out.
He's just gone for the rest of the podcast.
I'm looking for my old friend.
Steve's
My
already-
friend said,
Steve's already made his mark
"Sorry,
on this episode.
I walked out.
All right, Alex, it's your page, right?
Great, yeah. I think we should just title the episode "Steve Walks Out in the Middle." The one where Steve walks out in the middle.
He pulls a Gallagher.
This is a
Yeah.
Friends episode?
Yeah, it's a Friends episode now. So Shinobu continues, "Eliminate the ones who are captured. Silence them for good." And Usopp is shouting at her that she's scaring him. Of course, Traffy says, "What did you say?" And then she says, "This is the common way of things in the ninja world. We're not playing a game here." She screams as she starts crying now. She gives her impassioned speech. We've been waiting for this moment for 20 years. If we fail this time, we'll never have another chance. We have this big, big establishing shot that she's, it's one of those boom kind of shots. And out of nowhere, not out of nowhere, but he's in there too. Kanjiro tells Shinobu to stop it, and she says, as she wipes off her tears, "Master Khan, things will not always go as we hope," he says. "I understand your frustration, but without the help of these people, whose goals miraculously align with our own, we will never be able to fulfill Lord Odin's hopes." And before this impassioned argument can continue, Yaso walks in, because that's just what he does in Ebisu Town. And he says, "Oh, pardon, good fellows. Hello there. I couldn't help but overhear your voices outside. And what lovely voices they are." I guess at this point we forget that
The hell
not
is this
everybody.
guy?
has been introduced to Yasu, or Yaso rather, just Zoro at this point, and he walks in and he notices Nami and has a bit of a face fault as he says, "Oh, such beauty! Am I in the presence of a goddess?" And flattered Nami, of course, says, "Oh my goodness, please step inside." And
He reminds me of the street merchant from the beginning of Aladdin. When he talks like this.
Too close.
Such a beautiful necklace. Such a beautiful lady.
different street vendor.
That's right. Yeah, that's the middle of the movie.
That's right. Yeah, that's right now, right before the guy who says sugar dates and figs, sugar dates and pistachios.
Pistachio.
It's my
Want to
favorite.
buy a sundial? Wait, that's Hercules. What the hell am I doing?
Wanna buy, son? What you buying? So anyway, Usopp is exasperated. He's like, "Oh, come on." Seems like our dear sycophant notices some familiar faces. He says, "Ah, is that Shinobu and Kanjuro?" They seem pretty puzzled, and he brandishes the secret pamphlet and says, "Look, this is all the rage in the capital. In fact, I had thrills running up and down my back. Is it true that there's a great battle brewing?"
He's very excited.
I won't tell.
So it's very possible that he knows these people from way back.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Could he be a member of the Akazaya 9?
I'm surprised when he saw Shinobu. He's not like, Shinobu, my fellow Funko Pop shaped head.
Yeah, we're gonna see a flashback to him being like beautiful and live.
He's a Funko ninja.
With a giant head. Funko Ninja.
So on the next page, we're taken to the northern graveyard in Ringo, and Zoro wakes up with a swords. I love that. That's an exclamation of his, and he's like kicking the
Like his
sheet up in
autograph
the
is
air.
his sword.
So great, and it scares
Mom.
Toko, who laughs about it because that's how she reacts to everything, which is hilarious. And then with a bang, we see this mysterious young woman who, just for the sake of calling her something, let's call her Kumurasaki. Just pulling that out of a hat.
You mean Shmogurashaki?
Shimomurashaki.
Yeah, so Shimomurasaki says, asks him to, says that he needs to rest and says, that he's going to re-injure himself by walking about and kicking blankets and stuff. And she says, "Thank you so much for saving our lives earlier." Toko runs back saying, "Yeah, thanks." And Shimomurasaki expresses her regret that he suffered such an injury because of them. And he says that it was his own lack of skill that got him hurt. It has nothing to do with them. In fact, he's raring to find that big guy and fight him again because he's still got his sword that he has to get back. And then Shimomurasaki grabs Zoro by the arm, which obviously hurts him a lot. His tongue is sticking out. His face looks like looks like Brooke or something. And he's saying, "Please, no, you mustn't. Don't go outside when you're hurting like that." And it hurts him. Let's see. And then
He wouldn't hurt if you weren't dragging his bad arm.
yeah, exactly. Grabbing him right where it hurts. And she continues to apologize as she's doing it, which I think is pretty funny. And Toko says, it'll get better soon. Back in the capital, there was some special toad oil that she stole, that she bought for this. To which Komurasaki says, "So you stole it." And Toko continues that we spread that on, so you'll get better in no time. It's incredible stuff. Just makes sword wounds melt right away.
So
Just like those bandages.
was this something that Usopp was selling?
Yeah, I assume so.
Yeah. I'm concerned for its efficacy then.
Yeah, right.
Okay, and the last page, get someone saying Yukimaru, and yes, Yukimaru on Bandit's Bridge is a well-known figure in the city. I do not know where he normally lives, but he is a warrior monk who appears when anyone tries to cross that bridge carrying weapons. I get it now. Yes, he stuffs his face. And who are you folks? Why'd you have that Grim Reaper chasing after you? As it happened, we earned the wrath of the Shogun of Wano, and now we cannot return to the capital. Shogun, huh? That's Orochi? Orochi. And my name's Toko. That's a Toko with the honorific in front, but I'm not a man. Isn't that funny? Not really.
Oh.
That's some great comedic timing.
Yeah.
No, not funny at all. And she, I guess as Komurasaki continues, you must be from overseas, but you dress like a samurai Wano. That is, you look like a no good, nobleman. I heard that. Well, I'll admit something to you that must remain a secret. I'm looking for my older brother. We were separated 20 years ago. I think that he might be here in Wano now. His name is Kozuki Momonosuke. I am his younger sister, and my name is Hiyori. Duh.
Sister.
bullshit. Bullshit.
I mean, we've been saying it for weeks.
Hmm.
You think
don't
that they
believe
gave
it
it to
now?
us?
You don't like it?
They gave it to us too early, and now you don't believe it?
It's too suspicious. Why would she just tell anybody?
That's something that
I mean,
feeling weird
he did
about,
save her
too.
life. That's good reason as any.
Yeah, I don't know. I still don't have. I'm still not buying it. I don't know. We'll see. It's a weird thing to tell somebody, even if they just saved your life. Like, by the way, I'm looking for my older brother, whose name is Kozuki Momonosuke. You know, the famed enemies of the country.
Yeah,
the
right.
Well, I
Kazukis.
mean, she might also know about the symbol and like the tattoos and stuff if people have heard about that.
But what if Zoro was just like, just so happens I'm also a bounty hunter, and she went, ooh, you're gonna want to turn me in for money, aren't you?
money.
I've got to have money.
Money.
Anyway, Sam, what are your thoughts on the chapter overall?
I liked it a decent amount. Like, it's not the most exciting chapter in the
It's
world,
very
but like,
short.
I think, yeah, it's very short. But I think that the little character exchanges that we see in it, I think, are like Shinobu and Law is a really good scene. Like saying just how emotionally invested Shinobu is in this, and how willing she is to be the one who takes this seriously, and how frustrating it is to kind of deal with people who aren't 100% on the same page. The Hiyori thing, I definitely think that there is another factor to this. Like, it's not just like, oh, she was Komurasaku's Hiyori this whole time. Like, this feels like we're being set up for some like split personality or like hypnosis subplot.
Wow.
That was where my mind went.
I admit I did not see that coming, but I'm curious as to like how that would happen.
Yeah, like something like that. See, that's what would make this last scene make sense to me, is if she does not know that Momonosuke is like a big deal here, or I mean, she would have to some degree, but like,
So I would kill now for little Momonosuke say that. Yeah, I'm Lord Momonosuke. Kind of
not
a big deal. I was like, I'm kind of a big deal.
Well, that's the opposite of it, because it's also like I'm kind of dreading it, but I feel like we're gonna get the scene of him perving on his sister because she's got big tits. Like,
I mean, if Sanji felt nothing for Reiju,
see, that's the thing, though.
I feel like
Sister.
No,
That
they've
you
been
knew.
they've been separated for 20 years, though. It's not like maybe I guess he did grow up. Like, she was a baby, I guess, back then. Yeah, that's difficult. Anyway, do you have any further thoughts?
no, that's general.
Okay, Joey, what you got?
Not a lot. I was kind of disappointed by this chapter. It's not like I think it's just kind of fine. Like, it's not bad. It's just kind of getting us to where we're going, and it is short, and with a week break afterwards, it stings a little extra that way. I did think that the first couple of pages with the end of Zoro's fight was like really cool and staged really well, and I did like the character interactions too. But I honestly don't have a lot to say about it. Yeah, the Hiyori thing. I didn't have. I was taking it on its face value, but I did think it was weird. Like that she was opening up to Zoro. I thought that perhaps she knows his identity or something like that. But and isn't completely letting on in that way. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see because right now she's being definitely portrayed as this sort of innocent sister type, whereas we've been originally introduced to her as this like cold-hearted lady, and it would be interesting to see how Oda reconciles that she was faking that the whole time, or she was doing that to some end of some sort. But
and Stephen mentioned last week something about in Japanese there's kind of like an accent difference between how she talked, how she was talking last week, and how Komurasaki talks.
Because Komurasaki was talking in the sort of most like stereotypical formal, I think he was saying, or like a kind of fancy, way of speaking in old-timey Japan. I think is what he was saying. I don't know,
like haughty or something.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else?
No.
Okay, Alex, what you got?
Yeah, short chapter, of course. I thought it was fine as well. Echoing everything that y'all said, my particular favorite part of this particular chapter was the beginning, just because it was staged really well. Those first 2 pages are like bonkers good. I wonder who leaked the info, like how they found out the info. That is quite interesting. Maybe they have a mole or something. I don't know. That's a new wrinkle. I want to get to the bottom of the whole Hiyori Komurasaki thing as soon as possible, to be honest, just because at this point I don't know enough about this character, this Komurasaki character. Seems that
it's also not something that you can hold off on until the end of the thing. Like this has to be part of the reason for going to war, right? Like, so you kind of have to deal with it now.
Yes. I kind of hope that we come back to this, next chapter, because I want to get a handle on Komurasaki's character, because as we've seen like maybe 3 or 4 different sides of her, and it's not terribly consistent. Like the first time you see her, of course, she's the courtesan tricking unsuspecting old men.
And then she's standing up for herself in front of the shogun.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm the proud daughter of a samurai. Like that, of course. Maybe that's Hiyori speaking, but it's also weird because now in these chapters she seems less capable. At least she appears less capable than she did in Orochi's chamber.
Well, she did get slashed last chapter, right?
Well, that's the thing, is whatever ends up being the deal with her, I feel like will tie into whether or not Kyoshiro is actually like on the side of our heroes or not. Because I'm starting to lean to that he might be sympathetic actually to Kanjuro and etc. And that because if he slashed her and she escaped, but everyone thinks she's dead, like what happened to her bot? Like how did she escape?
Yeah, I wonder if maybe I don't know, like maybe if Kyoshiro is working, for the Kozuki clan. Maybe he was the one that leaked the plan just because, this was a...
That's kind of what I'm thinking.
Yeah, like it's sort of part of the plan, I guess, but not really. Like,
or he's trying to get the pieces where he wants them to be, so because he's got some even better idea than what they have in mind.
Yeah, I don't know. It's so hard to say at this point in the story what we think is going to happen and why things are happening. This is like this chapter is a classic example of like this is this is a chapter that helps build the arc. So that's sort of where I am at with it. I just can't wait to see where it goes.
Okay, and Steve, what are your thoughts?
Wow, I really don't have too much to offer here. It was a short chapter. I wouldn't say underwhelming, but I felt like there could have been more. Because we still had some important information got across. Or did we find out last week that Beppo got kidnapped?
We know he'd been taken. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess the main focus on this chapter was that people are catching on to the little scheme, the coup that they're coming up with. But I still felt like not a lot was happening, and it needed to end on a big cliffhanger. So I wonder if Oda just kind of said like, "All right, now's the time. Now's the time to reveal this," because I honestly don't think there's any big trick here. I think she truly is Momonosuke's sister. I don't think it's going to be any more complicated than that. I think Oda was like, this, I'm going on break. This has to end with something. This has to have a little bit more punch because not a whole lot happened this week. So that's my stance. Otherwise, I don't know, uneventful. I feel like some of the recent chapters have been a little uneventful lately. Still good, but not as like Wano was firing off on all cylinders at the beginning, and I feel like we're kind of slowing down a little bit.
Okay. My thoughts overall were the again, I love the cinematic ending of the Zoro versus Kikimaru fight, and or not Kikimaru, Kamazo,
Yeah.
Scytheman, and it's sort of the characters sort of bouncing off of each other, and I thought that Shinobu's statement was really powerful. It goes to the center of what all these pirates do all the time: is travel from island to island and sort of solve everyone's problems. But like, this is this is their life. This is and Luffy's always been good about acknowledging that, but Luffy's not there right now. So, like, that's sort of like the inspiration part has been Luffy's part, and without him around, I feel like there's a lot of administrators and no leaders here. There's no leaders in this group without Luffy. And Hawkins and Drake are funny. Again, I like them as a sort of a comedy team. And but other than that, you guys sort of covered it. There isn't a lot to talk about with this. Although I did enjoy Law sticking up for his crew. It's in the law. It's a law thing to do. So I like that. Yeah, you guys sort of talked about Komurasaki. I don't have as many opinions on it as you do right now. I'm sort of a wait and see with that because I feel like there was more Oda wanted to say in this chapter, and he decided I'm going on vacation, so I'm just going to end this chapter a little early this week. like
I'm not even supposed to be here today.
Like, when does he regularly turn in like a 12-page chapter? Like, that doesn't happen.
I don't know.
That doesn't happen very often at all. Like, they're all usually 15, 16 pages at least.
And it's rough because, like, a lot of times the chapter after a break, he kind of catches you up a little bit with what's going on. And I feel like this chapter was also a sort of catch up on what's going on with everybody. So, like, just going to be kind of a little, I'm anticipating, I could be wrong, but in 2 weeks, the next chapter being similar to this, where we're just kind of hopping from place to place, seeing what everybody's doing.
Yeah, nothing is about to hit the fan quite yet. Just because, Big Mom hasn't gotten to the prison yet. Luffy is still fighting guys, hasn't gotten to Queen quite yet. Nami and the rest of them are just kind of hanging out. But I do think that Yasu being there and knowing, knowing Shinobu and Kanjuro, that could move stuff forward. In an interesting way, I think. So
I do think it's worth noting that that the prison scene was totally taken out of this. Like, there's no check-in with Luffy. So like, I feel like once we return to that, there will be some big movement.
Like, it'll been a long time since we've seen Luffy by the time we get the next chapter.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's move on to the next segment, the anime recap.
This is the anime recap for episode 878. The world is stunned. The fifth emperor of the sea emerges. I'm your host Sam, and today with me we have Ed.
Hey, I'm thinking that's not a very accurate title for what happened this week.
How do you say? How do you mean?
It's more like the origin of Luffy's scar, Luffy's past revealed for the second time.
Or the third time, or the fourth time. I feel like I have this backstory committed to memory so much that being...
It's chapter 1 of the manga. I mean, how could you not?
Being asked to sit through it again is just weirdly taxing now.
It's like I'm watching an episode of East Blue. It's like that's what it felt like. I mean, it was very nicely animated, and like you can see where Shanks's like the blood spurted came off when his arm was bitten.
When they
That was
showed
pretty
these clips in the next episode preview, I thought I was like, oh, are they just using clips from episode of East Blue? But I disagree because I once this episode started and I realized that this episode did not look nearly as good as episode of East Blue.
Yeah, although they didn't. Although, as I said, they didn't have a problem showing Luffy cutting his face with a knife.
Yeah. The tarot card this week begins at 2 minutes and 50 seconds. Again, no recap, which is a real surprise. They could
There's going to be a lot of
away with
flashback. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of flashback in these next like we're going to get a whole Kobe flashback next episode. I can tell. Like it's going to go on for maybe not a whole half an episode, but maybe 6-7 minutes.
So we begin with some seagulls flying through the sky, and the camera kind of pulls down, and we see just Shanks hanging out on a rock in the middle of the ocean. He's got a newspaper. Vegapunk's name is on the front of the paper, or it's in the part of the paper we can see.
Well, you can see it all throughout the episode, and you can see a picture of Dufeld, you can see a picture of Weevil, you can see a picture of giant children next to the Dr. Vegapunk article, and also a picture of Caesar.
Yeah, I saw the Caesar.
So, yeah, and the children were there on the other side of Dr. Vegapunk's name. So, apparently the kids are in the newspaper.
Mm-hmm. So we are flashing back. We get our Luffy Shanks backstory at long last.
At great length, you mean?
So we get
it goes on for like 15 minutes.
Yeah, we do get the face stab scene of Luffy going like, I'm going to do it, which I can't keep track anymore. This might be the first time that this is like a part of the TV show's canon.
I'm not sure if it was in a special or not. It definitely wasn't in episode 1 or episode 3, actually. Episode 3.
4.
4
is
damn it.
the
okay.
But it was an episode of East Blue. I remember that. So we get the face stab scene. I've got just the really brief notes on this whole section. The milk prank where Shanks goads Luffy into drinking some milk and then makes fun of him for it.
I thought it was juice.
Or juice. I
feel like it's been called different things.
Yeah. Higuma the bear shows up. He's a man with 8 million. I can't remember if they reference. I always thought it was funny how, like Higuma, he's got an 8 million bounty, but he's apparently killed like 57 people or something like weirdly high.
I mean, unless he's like, I don't know. It's kind of a backwater. The government isn't going to put a bounty on. I don't know.
I don't know. I always thought that was such a dramatic number for what's now such a low bounty.
And it's also when you think of like the berries are like yen, so it's like $80,000.
But still, even like okay. So Higuma shows up. He has his banner with Shanks, who just kind of brushes him off. Luffy gets mad at Shanks for not being a man, standing up for himself, and Shanks has this whole like, it's not worth it spiel. Luffy eating the gum fruit out of frustration. Some time passes, and Luffy gets in a fight with the bandits again over Shanks. Even though Luffy was mad at Shanks, he's still sticking up for him when he's not around. Lucky Roo just straight up murders a man.
Well, that guy pulled a gun on him. Pulled a gun on Shanks. That's what happens.
Yeah. Classic scene. Guns they're not just for threats. Higuma kidnaps Luffy. They're out at sea. The sea monster shows up. I think there's a lot of the same music cues that were used back in episode 4. Or at least like the same tracks being used in very close proximity to where they were originally.
This definitely looks better than episode 4, but that's
it looks newer than episode 4. I think episode 4 has way more. I think it's way more charming looking. That's
nostalgia too.
I'm not a big fan of this flashback sequence. But Shanks gets his arm bit off, and then we have the scene of Shanks and his crew leaving and giving Luffy the hat. 10 years later, we get the classic. This is one of the things that was kind of famously not in episode 4, which is Luffy punching the sea monster 10 years later, getting ready to sail off.
But it was always like it felt like it was though, because it was just in the opening for the first 50 episodes.
Yeah, that, and I think there were other times that they reanimated this opening, or they reanimated this flashback. I think close to the time skip we saw the scene animated.
Right, because all those was it Ennie's Lobby flashbacks, those were just reused animation with bars on the sides.
Yeah. So we come back to the proper present now. Makino and her baby. She's kind of looking out at the horizon. She's like, "Oh, I wonder what Luffy's up to now." Get good look at that baby. He's got Makino hair, so we don't really know.
Yeah, he looks like his mother.
No clues. No clues on who the father could be. That's when the eye catch of the episode shows up. Fittingly, it's Luffy's wanted poster. And then we come back, and it's still the Makino scene, and like Whoop Slap is running to tell her the news because Luffy's in the newspaper again. We come back to the Sunny. Everything they're sailing on, things seem to be going smooth. Luffy kind of jumps up from his spot as he's resting, and a raid suit falls out of his pocket. Or a mysterious black can with the number 3 on it falls out of his pocket.
Well, this is very early Baroque works feeling of sailing the seas with the crew.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
Chopper's the one who recognizes it as a German device, and they get really excited at the thought of transforming into. They have their own little fantasies of themselves
shooting beams. It's every man's dream.
Yeah, they assume Sanji's suit must be yellow,
which is weird that they would think that, given that all the other ones match the color of the suit. But yeah.
Sanji's trying to throw it overboard because he wants nothing to do with it, obviously. He figures that it must have been Niji who did it, who slipped into Luffy's pocket. And Luffy and Chopper are like trying to they're trying to defend like the concept of science. Like science is an expression of man, or whatever they say. And Sanji's like, I could not give less of a shit. And then Nami steps in. Oh, did somebody insult science? And that's her excuse. That's her excuse to show off her new upgrade. In her,
she's got Usopp technology.
Yeah, Usopp technology. Her sorcerer's climate baton, and living inside it is also now a little somebody named Zeus, who's tagging along. I guess.
Nami's she's in a very good mood. She's singing and everything.
Yeah, the question of like how can Zeus operate remote from Big Mom? Not going to be addressed anytime soon, I guess.
And especially not now with what's going on in the manga.
Yeah. So Luffy and Chopper are trying to use the raid suit, but they figure it only works with Sanji. And Sanji's like, he's very adamant. He's like, listen, I got 2 words I don't ever want to hear you guys say. Germa 66 and Vinsmoke. Like when I'm around, no go.
Yeah. It's interesting that scene of them trying to use the raid suit is like when they're trying to summon the dragon on Namek and no one knows like you have to summon the dragon in Namek.
Yeah. So Carrot's at the top of the ship. She's getting the newspaper from the news coup. She's like, hey everyone, we've got the news. And Luffy's face is on the front page. Luffy's wondering, oh, did they mention Jinbei? Did they say what happened after we left? And no news on that. Although every time we see the front page of the paper with Luffy's face on it, Jinbei's always like right next to him.
It's interesting. The newspaper gives all the credit to Luffy. He's
the mastermind. Yeah.
It must be that must be hard for Capone.
Some new bounty posters fall out. Sanji's got a new one. He's got 330 million. He's asking Brook what Zoro's bounty was, and Brook's saying, "Oh, Zoro's was 320 million." So for a brief moment, Sanji's ahead, and he's very excited about that. And he also notices that the wanted poster is back to saying "dead or alive" instead of just "alive." But he also notices there's another little detail on his poster, which is that the world government is recognizing him as Vinsmoke Sanji after he went through all that trouble to disown the name. Life is just kind of punking him now. So Sanji's in a bad mood, and then Brook looks over and he realizes that Luffy's in an even worse mood for some reason, which they don't get to in this episode.
Mm.
So now we're just kind of panning around through the rest of the world, kind of reacting to the news. We see Fishman Island. They're talking about how, now that things are going south with Big Mom, they're going to need to use the Straw Hat flag to protect the country soon.
Everyone down there is wearing the hats still.
Yeah, Shirahoshi wants to come along for the reverie because she wants to be brave. She doesn't want to be wimpy Hoshi anymore. Overtaken starts playing, classic. We see Luffy and Sanji's papers just like falling from the sky in some random town. Crocodile's reading a newspaper. The narrator's just kind of going through the beats, explaining that the newspaper recognizes Luffy's grand fleet and how he's got a crew of 5,000 people behind him.
It's all the people like telling stories about Luffy.
Yeah, this is one of we didn't really get that because in the anime because they didn't do the cover story of like Brook or not of Bartolomeo like selling straw hat trinkets and stuff.
That's true.
He's the younger brother of Sabo, the number 2 in the Revolutionary Army. He led Germa, Double Six, the Fire Tank Pirates, and the Sun Pirates in a big battle where he was the mastermind. The narrator even mentioned something like the newspaper mentioned something like, and he has the brains to lead such an amazing operation that knocks Big Mom's tower over. He beat officers of 800 million berries and 1 billion berries, Cracker and Katakuri. And the newspaper ends by dubbing him the 5th Emperor of the Sea. And we see Sakazuki sitting at his little admiral's table, getting very mad about this. Like, no, I don't agree to that. No one asked me my opinion.
4 emperors, 5 emperors, whatever.
Then the last shot of the episode is Shanks. He's just read the paper. He smiles. To be continued.
There you go.
Yeah, general thoughts on the episode, Ed?
It was half of a flash, recap, and
yeah,
I like the stuff on the ship with the crew. That was nice.
Mm-hmm.
It's very light material. It's nice after a heavy arc, and didn't make me angry to watch it because I like that story, the episode 1 story. I haven't watched that in a while. Not since like episode of East Blue, so getting an abbreviated version of that was okay. Kind of don't want it to happen like every week from now on with like what's good, like because there's going to be reverie and there's going to be reintroducing all sorts of characters and like they're going to be tempted to do all sorts of flashbacks and recaps and
yeah.
But I guess
now is the time to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Not excited about that though necessarily.
Yeah. Wasn't like I didn't enjoy watching the Luffy flashback again. I didn't think that this was a very well told version of that story either. Although I do recognize that after I think the anime ended pretty strong with Whole Cake Island. They kind of stepped it up just to get to the finish line. Now is the time for them to now's the time for us to see the slack a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes sense. A little disappointed that we don't get to hear about Luffy's bounty yet. But what can you do?
I guess they're gonna do that next week.
Yeah, I thought the new story stuff was okay, and I thought that the flashback stuff was pretty weak. But I understand why it's there.
Right.
So
okay.
All right. Is that it?
Yep. You want to move on to the next segment?
I would love to.
All right, let's do it. This is the Piece Together segment where we take your questions, your comments, your theories, and we start this week with This Piece. Sam?
Our first, or really our only This Piece this week comes from our good friend Joe. Since no one got my joke last week, I made this edit to explain the visual I had in my head, which was the Hungry Hungry Hippos joke, and now it's a picture of Hungry Hungry Hippos, except the pink hippo is Big Mom, and the yellow hippo is Queen.
Okay.
Little Photoshop.
Cool.
And then Also, it's a day early, but nonetheless, happy birthday, Zach. Zach is not with us today, but you'll have a chance to give him a proper birthday wish, I think.
Yeah.
And then right below her is Morgil also saying happy birthday, presumably to Zach.
Yep, April 1st, him and Usopp. Is that right? Yeah.
Yep, Brave Warriors
Same
of the Sea, both. Yeah.
Right. All right, cool. Alex, what do we have on Reddit?
All right, Reddit. We've got a couple really good ones, I think. Hello, guys. This is from Prince of Assassins. Hello, guys. I just wanted to say I really like the Law and Shinobi interaction. It gives us proof how much Law cares about his crew, establishes how seriously Shinobu is taking the mission, and also increases tension. My question is, if all the Straw Hats were mid-priced chain restaurants, which ones would they be?
That's amazing. Yeah.
Frankie would be Carl's Jr. / Hardee's.
No, he'd be Dave and Buster's. He's got all sorts of attractions.
I guess so. Sorry,
Yeah,
I just
yeah.
thought of the star motif.
No, I'm thinking mid-priced chain restaurants would be like
Outback.
TGI Fridays, right?
Yeah.
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 So Frankie would be TGI Fridays.
TGI
TGI Frankie's.
Damn it, Jinx.
That's a good one. Chopper would be
Yeah.
like the Rainforest Cafe.
Yeah.
They still have one of those in the mall by my house.
Oh, actually, I was going to say Chopper might be like a Sakura, that chain of
Okay.
of hibachi places.
I was gonna say Longhorn Steakhouse, but that's fine.
I think I would say that Luffy is probably I don't know, mid-priced chain restaurant.
No, he's Fogo de Chao.
That's not mid-priced.
Yeah, but it's unlimited meat.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking that too because it's if he was from a country, quote unquote, it would be Brazil, and it's a Brazilian steak place.
It's not necessarily the Straw Hats, but maybe the three brothers, Ace, Sabo, Luffy, would be Applebee's, Chili's, and Ruby Tuesdays.
Ruby Tuesdays. Oh man,
Zoro would be Benihana's.
Benihana. Yeah. I don't know why, but Usopp would be Bennigan's.
Yes, or Shenanigans
No,
if those still exist.
No. Wait. Ace would be Bennigan's because all the Bennigans don't exist anymore.
Too soon.
During the time skip, he'd be a fat burger.
What would Sanji be? Sanji too good for this, or
Hooters.
Off-brand.
There
No,
it-
you'd be
there
like
it
an
is.
off-brand Hooters, like Twin Peaks.
That's a great like setup punchline. Is Sanji too good for this? Hooters.
It's like, no, he's not. I stand corrected.
What about Nami or Robin? Anyone?
Orange Julius? Is that too cheap?
That's really cheap.
Would
Maybe
would
Robin's like something like the California
Panera
Pizza.
bread.
A salad buffet.
Yeah, Panera, I guess would probably.
I think Panera bread.
Yeah, that's a good one for Robin, I'd say. Or you know what? No, how about this? Robin's and Barnes and Noble because they have like fucking cafes and shit in there.
They're gonna have like full menu and table service coming soon.
Yeah.
Beer.
All right. What's the next one, Alex?
Okay. This is from Tababoon. Hey, OBP. Throughout the series, how many years do you think Luffy has shaved off of his lifespan using Gear 2nd through 4th and Ivankop's techniques? And also, do you think he'll be dead at the end of the series, or will he still be alive and be Pirate King? I feel like we get this question every now and again.
I used to talk about it a lot. Like
It's been a while.
early years in the show, I always used to think that Luffy would die at the end. I'm not as certain about that anymore, but it's still a possibility.
And I'm more open to that possibility than I used to be. Like I used to be like, what? No.
Yeah.
But
What was the rest
I
of that
don't
question?
That's it basically. Oh yeah, do you think he'll be alive at the end of the series, or how many years do you think he's?
Oh right, yeah. Oh, at least a decade. Like that. Like just Ivankov itself must have taken a long time.
Yeah, I think that like if he does end up dying at the end of the series, it'll probably be due to that versus anything else. To be perfectly honest, but I don't know. I think that's something that Oda just might walk back, like the power level thing that Chapapa.
Yeah, it hasn't really come up in a while.
Fukuro, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Nice hat, Tommy. I'm going to truncate this. My question is: do you think we're going to see a samurai love triangle in Wano between these three, Kyoshiro, Komurasaki, and Zoro? Do you think Kyoshiro knows Komo Hiyori's secret and is actually a Kozuki clan retainer? Yeah, we talked about this a little in the manga recap, right?
Mm-hmm.
He definitely knows her secret. I definitely believe that.
Yeah, Kyoshiro's the one that I'm like the most interested in this story arc right now, because I just can't figure out where he's at, and I think that's really interesting and fun.
I don't think Zoro's getting involved in any love triangles. I don't know. I don't think he would understand how that works. He just hasn't shown any interest at all in women pretty much this entire story.
He's in love with his 3 swords.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure Zoro in the situation would be like, sword? Be like, no, Zoro, love. Sword? Sword.
3 love style.
Ken or Koi? This is from Straw Hat Deku. Hello, APP gang. My brother and I were talking, and he thought, what if Fujitora is from Wano and one of the Akazaya 9? He could maybe feel like he owes Luffy for saving his home country. What are your thoughts on this, and do you think it's possible?
I think we've definitely thought that he's from Wano, right?
So Fujitora's Vivre card has come out pretty recently, and I don't think it says that he's from Wano.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I was. What would that be based on? Just the fact that he looks like a Japanese actor?
He's dressed.
That's true for all the admirals, and he has a sword, I guess.
His clothes are like sort of Japanese,
sort of samurai-ish, or sword fighter, And there was something in his backstory that I felt like, I don't remember what, but something about how he lost his sight felt very like it was talking about Wano, but I don't remember.
Yeah. But speaking to Fujitora, so he is from the Grand Line. That's where he's born. So not
vague.
Not the New World. They make it different. They make a distinction.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yes. Hey OPP, this is a little long, so let's bear with it for a hot sec. This is from Xenologos. When Zoro got Shusui, he commented how the blade was hard to control, that it had a mind of its own, and would cut recklessly if not controlled. At the time, it seemed like it was due to physical features of the sword, like its weight and edge. Now, after hinting at haki forging, it seems the sword really did have a will of its own. Do you think that a sword forged with haki can only be wielded by a swordsman who can overpower or align with the will of the sword? After the time skip, Zoro uses Shusui the most, using it for most of his one-sword attacks. He seems to have complete control over the sword. Is it possible that by using Shusui, Zoro could prove that he is worthy of it?
I always read it as I always read the spiritual essence of the sword was a fairly literal thing, not just like. They were wondering if they were thinking it was just like a physical trait that was hard to control. I always was under the impression that was like a character, like a spiritual characteristic of it.
Mm-hmm.
Then do you think now that could be kind of attributed to haki?
I mean, like anything, it kind of just goes back to the rhythm of all things, voice of all things. Like everything that like there is haki, and then there's other things that are obviously like tied to the hip with haki.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we got a couple more. This one I think is pretty interesting. Grand Reboot has a theory about oars and Kaido. He says, ever hear the Japanese tale of the red ogre and the blue ogre? Well, before we go,
we've all watched Dragon Ball Z.
No, but you guys do you guys know the story? Like I'm asking, because if you don't, then I won't explain.
Not really, no.
Pretend like I don't know.
Okay, well, here's a truncated version of it, I guess. Long ago, beyond the woods, through the forest in the past, in the deep mountains of Japan, there lived Aka Oni, a red ogre, and Ao Oni, a blue ogre. The Red Ogre liked human children very much, and he was always thinking about how he could make friends with them every day. The Red Ogre wanted to become friends with children in a village nearby, so the Red Ogre invited the children to come to his house to play. But no one showed up, and the Red Ogre grew puzzled, sad, and angry. I'm such a kind ogre. Why would nobody visit me? Moved by his friend's feelings, the Blue Ogre said, Look, I have a plan. The Blue Ogre's plan was for him to pretend to terrorize children and then have the Red Ogre chase him off, rescuing them from him. The plan went off without a hitch, and the Red Ogre became the most popular creature among the children, and all came to play with him. After a happy day of enjoying the children's company, the Red Ogre found a letter from the Blue Ogre. The letter said, My dear Red Ogre, if people find out that you are a friend of the bad Blue Ogres, they will not let the children come to you anymore. So I'm leaving. Please live happily with the children. Goodbye, Blue Ogre. The Red Ogre cried out, Blue Ogre is gone, a dear friend of mine. He's gone, and he wept. The Red Ogre and the Blue Ogre were to never see each other again. So that is the story. So if Oars was to represent the Red Ogre in One Piece, then Kaido could be the child of a Blue Ogre that stayed in Wano. Why isn't he as tall as Oars Jr., you may ask? I don't know. But if I were to guess, Kaido is half human, half giant Blue Ogre. I thought that was very interesting. But I also wanted to bring up that I believe that at least the Viz translations, Brogy and Dory are called the Red Ogre and Blue Ogre. So I thought that was kind of interesting as well.
Okay.
Yeah. So this one I saved for last, and I sent you guys this thing in the chat. So we're going to go around and do this because I think it would be fun. El Grosso says, would you eat a devil fruit not knowing what powers you would get? If yes, click on this random noun generator to see what devil fruit it was and tell a little bit about your new abilities. So,
okay, random noun.
Should we not give away what the word is? Should we describe our abilities and have other people guess?
Here's one. Here's mine. Makes me talk.
Okay.
Makes me talk in an accent like I'm in Boston.
Are you a co-op?
I'm a co-op fruit.
Are we just supposed to go with the first word we get when we click on it?
That's what I did.
Because so far mine is incredibly vague.
Well, I mean that's the thing. Like
you can click generate again if you want.
So mine.
Life doesn't give you second devil fruit, Steve.
That's true.
Unless you're black.
Exactly. If you get a second one, you'll blow up otherwise.
Okay. Well, here's the word I got when I clicked the link.
If you re-roll, you die.
Well, here's
what's your power, Steve?
Combat.
Awesome.
Combat.
Yeah.
Combat.
I guess I am a bit of a passive person. So once I eat this fruit, I just want to. I'm like the Scottish guy in Trainspotting. I just want to fucking fight everybody.
They're all Scottish guys in Trainspotting.
Well, I'm the angry Scottish one. I'm the guy who threw a freaking liquor glass in a crowded bar. I've become a monster.
Steve, maybe your fruit power is you're like Taskmaster from Marvel. You're like if you fight somebody, you gain the knowledge of their combat techniques.
Ooh, pretty good.
Yeah,
I got to fight them
to get their powers, right?
Yeah.
I got the twins fruit.
Twins,
which is plural.
Fruit?
So like it's I don't just create a twin of myself. I create
you create the movie with
you're like Boruto's dad.
Yeah, exactly. Just like Boruto's dad. Alex, what about you?
Well, let's get Joey first. I'll go last.
I have a zoan fruit. My neck stretches very long, and I can lay big eggs. And when I get scared, I put my head in sand.
Oh, you're an ostrich.
Yep.
The bird fruit, a model ostrich.
Oh man.
Yep.
That thing could
be great.
That could fuck someone up.
Yeah.
Big
I should start writing you.
Yeah.
Oh, the human ostrich hybrid form would be awesome.
Yeah.
So
Alex.
Yeah, my fruit power has the ability to gather as many people around me as I can to make angry and chase after one particular thing. And there may be torches and
so you're a mob?
Are you
I got the mob fruit.
You're a mob psycho.
That's right.
Yeah.
That'd be great if I could have those psycho powers.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Nah, you just eat the fruit and it just gives you a bad bowl cut.
I like that. Thank you, El Grosso, for that one. That was fun.
That was fun.
Anyway, that'll do it for Reddit.
Okay, so that takes us to Piece the Tweet. Yeah. Piece the Tweet time. First one comes from Jonah Green. It says, do you guys think Yasu is one of the 9 red scabbards? I guess we kind of addressed that during the manga recap, but it's definitely possible. Definitely possible. Next one comes from Illusion No Me, who says, what would you like the most in the story now? 1, a great fight, even greater than Zoro's, which just happened. 2, a backstory. 3, one of the threads in this arc to be solved so the story can greatly move forward. I feel like I'm being led to one of the answers here. Yeah, Komurasaki, we'd like to have that resolved, I think, next. Right?
Mhm.
Yeah, I liked Zoro's fight a lot, but I am still kind of hoping for him to get pushed a bit more than that.
I want to see the Odin flashback.
Mhm.
I'm ready. I'm ready for something that hurts.
That'd be good. Whenever it comes, that'll be good. And our last piece of tweet is from 91 Ryan, who says, fun biology fact based on the cover, birds take dirt baths in order to maintain their feathers by removing things such as mites, and prevents the feathers from being greasy or matted. So, thanks for that. That's why they do that. But unless anyone has anything else, we'll go right into the round off.
Great.
Good.
This has been the One Piece Podcast, episode 563 for the week of Sunday, March 31st, 2019. And on the show this week, we had a manga recap for chapter 938, anime recap for episode 878. Let's see, a Romance Dawn interview with Henry Gilbert, Talking Simpsons podcast, also some piece together. And again, as a reminder, the manga is off next week, and we'll have something. Not sure what yet, but we'll make it good. Anyway, thanks to Joey for coming on this week. How can the people out there contact you?
Yeah, they can follow me on Twitter at Joey Weiser or Instagram, Joey Weiser Comics. Check out the Merman graphic novels, and coming in May is Ghost Hog, a brand new graphic novel. And you can go on May 4th to any of your local comic seller, and they should have free comic book day issues of Ghost Hog, so you can get some free comics, which is exciting. So look out for me there. And if you're in the Denver area, I'll be at Dink the second weekend in April. Yeah.
Dink.
Also, Toho Yaro.
Oh yeah, and please listen to the podcast that I do with Alex and our friend Scott, Toho Yaro. We just did a episode about a crazy movie called Funky Forest that I definitely recommend listening to and watching the movie if you can. And then I'm hosting our new episode, which should be coming out pretty soon, about Abashiri Prison, a classic prison escape movie with Ken Takakura.
Which people might be more aware of now because of Golden Kamuy.
Oh yeah, and actually, I actually tweeted about this a while ago, but Old Man Kyo is possibly playing on that movie, possibly playing off of a trope that exists in Japan in general, but of this sort of like secret meek old man in prison who ends up being kind of a badass. That appears in Abashiri Prison as well.
Right on. And Sam, where can people out there contact you?
They can find me on Twitter at Lucky Chainsaw. They can find me on AnimeNewsNetwork.com doing the daily streaming reviews for One Piece, Black Clover, and JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Golden Wind. And they can find me on the One Piece podcast every week doing the anime recaps.
Right on. Alex.
Hey, I'm at Dude Exclamation on Twitter. I'm also at Weeb Simpsons on Twitter. Listen to Toho Yaro, as Joey said. And you should go to superartfight.com/merch and buy Cute Animals on Fire, the card game that I worked on with Super Art Fight. And if you're going to be in DC during the weekend of April 26th, Super Art Fight will be there, and so will I. There'll be several shows for you to see me, Alex, do some cool live art in front of people. So check that out if you're at AwesomeCon, and come and say hello.
Right on. And Steve.
You know where to find me. Steve Yurko, Twitter, Instagram. Listen to me on other podcasts. The Deep End, Toon Sweet. We might just review the WWE Flintstones crossover movie.
Oh my God, yes!
Thanks, Mr. McMahon.
There is a poll. It's probably closed at this point on Twitter, but I don't know why anyone would truly believe we shouldn't. So we're gonna.
Hey, we can talk to Doctor about it on this show actually. Now that he's caught up with One Piece.
Yeah, it's
In years, it feels like.
Yeah, get in, Doctor. Good to have you back.
All right, and Zach is at Zach_Logan. I am Edward E. One Piece on Twitter. I'm also at Weed Trailer. Check out today. I posted the Mobile Suit Gundam, the OG Gundam trailer from the DVD. Check that out, and some Utena trailers coming this week. So, for the One Piece podcast, you can be found at OnePiecePodcast.com, Twitter.com, YouTube.com, and Facebook.com/OnePiecePodcast. OnePiecePodcast@gmail.com is our email address. One Piece Podcast is our Skype name. Please support us, patreon.com/OnePiecePodcast, r/OnePiecePodcast. That's our subreddit. You can leave us some piece together there. Subscribe on Google Play. Subscribe on Spotify. Subscribe, rate, and review on Apple Podcasts. Or call us on our phone number. That's 347-497-MAJI.
MAJI.
347-497-6254. Call anytime.
Anytime.
Your questions, your comments, your theories, your reasons why we always just add reasons you should go to TGI Frankie's.
TGI Frankie's.
Anyway, so for the One Piece podcast this week, my name is Ed.
My name is Steve.
My name is Alex.
See you next week, everybody. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
No
How much would
trivia.
that be?
Phew.
Oh, well, Joey. Why did you ask?